the third and final video of my little espionage series, and I want you to bear in mind here, you know, I don't want to be running around as Bond, James Bond. I don't want to be the flashy guy who draws a lot of attention. We're talking about being a spy, and being a spy is a lot like being a scout. You want to be camouflaged into your environment. An example of this would be the Black Dragon in Ninjitsu videos I did. Now, if you notice, I was wearing street clothes, khakis, the same olive drab t-shirt, and a gray long sleeve shirt that I could have easily thrown over. Now, the thing about this is, and bear in mind, I could easily have buttoned up my shirt and tucked it into my khakis to look a little bit more upkept than what I did. And while I was in street clothes, you should also bear in mind that the color scheme of my clothes was there to match the color scheme of the woodland, I guess you would say, or an urban environment as well. The gray and the khaki would work both in a urban environment as well as in a woodland environment. My green shirt here would blend in good in the woodland environment. And the idea here isn't that I had, you know, super uber ninja skills and could pop out of sight in a few of the videos rather easily. The idea was that I could easily transition from one environment to the other in a relatively unnoticed pace. As a lot of people commented that during certain parts of the video that I was able to kind of pop out of sight very easily and not be easily noticed. It should also be noted that I could just as easily sit down on a park bench and, you know, feed the pigeons and go equally unnoticed. And this is something you should consider when we're talking about the idea of espionage and ninjutsu, because we're talking about camouflage. And right along you have concealment and cover, you also have camouflage. And camouflage isn't just BDUs or a shinobi gi. Camouflage is the ability to set in an environment to be seen but to not be noticed. And that was a good example of that. My clothes matched the color scheme, which would allow me to camouflage with my woodland environment as well as move through an urban environment relatively unnoticed. And the reason for this is because you want to be the gray man. Now, the gray man isn't a good self-defense principle, because the gray man, the idea of going unnoticed, does have a tendency to attract antisocial criminal types. But as far as a person who's observing, you want to appear to be in the background. For a infantry scout, you want to look like another piece of shrubbery in the background. For a spy, you want to look like just another guy out there. Even if you're infiltrating an enemy's organization, you want to appear to be just some low-level lackey who's sucking up to the boss. You don't really want to be the James Bond flashy type. That draws attention. And given a choice between the pistol and this little notepad will do far better. I believe that when Benjamin Franklin said that the pen was mightier than the sword, that he wasn't speaking of the freedom of speech so much as the idea of propaganda and intelligence work. And of course, you know, with my scruffy beard and my long hair, I don't look like a person very well versed in survival training or escape and evasion training, or a person with any knowledge of basic espionage tactics or psychological manipulation or infiltration skills, or a person who has, you know, any of those basic soldiering skills I mentioned, because I don't look like a soldier or someone who's been in the military, because I'm a little scruffy. And of course, you know, we all know that we can trust the appearance of things, because, well, the fact of the matter is, even though we generally take things at face value based on appearance, well, appearance isn't everything. Now, that said, what I'm going to cover is this. I'm going to use the basic military doctrine for this. It's already widely known and spread throughout the internet, so it's not that big of a deal. But whenever you're filling out a report, there's the military SOP for doing so, and this comes in two types of reports which go together. One is a salute report. A salute report is an acronym. It stands for size, action, location, unit/unit insignia, the time and date, and the equipment observed being used. This is what you all mentioned about your enemy, what the enemy is doing, and everything else. Then following this, you fill out what is referred to as a 5 W's report. And this is where each man who was there to observe and fill out their own salute report also goes back to say who was there with them, what everyone was doing, when they were doing it, where they were doing it, and why they were doing it. This way, if you have any contact with the enemy, it's able to figure out what you were doing and why you did it, and if there's anything that can be exploited between this and whatever have you. Now, the idea of espionage also comes with the idea of secret codes and cryptography and everything else. Secret codes are very common. A lot of urban slang, a lot of slang terms actually are pretty much code words. They're used for different methods. For example, drug dealers and drug addicts often refer to pills as beans, or refer to marijuana as Christmas trees. And to the person simply listening in, they might hear, hey dude, you got any beans? And they might, think, hey, cookout. To the person who knows what they're talking about, they're like, hey, that's a drug deal going on. And of course, the police are knowledgeable onto this, so it's not anything new or revolutionary for me to say this. And it's just, when you're a kid, you always want to do the spy thing, and everyone always had their spy kits or everything else, at least for little boys growing up. And when you get into the idea of codes, one word can mean something else. For example, it's a commonly mentioned terms in a lot of spy books that the word horoscope refers to a report. This way you can be in a coffee shop and look at a person and say, hey Dave, did you read your horoscope today? And Dave can reply, well, no Bill, I haven't read my horoscope. And to a person sitting beside them, they might think, why are two men talking about reading the horoscope? When in fact they're mentioning reports. For example, the term cat can mean a nighttime operation. The term dog can mean a ground operation. Bird can mean an airborne operation, or an aerial operation, an airstrike of that nature. Frog can mean a water op, or an amphibious landing somewhere. So, they can sit there and have that same conversation. Hey Bill, last night I seen or 2 weeks ago I seen the most strangest thing. I seen a cat chase a frog into the water, and basically what you're getting the idea of there is that someone had seen a nighttime operation, which where the nighttime operation, the cat, the night op, was pursued, or a nighttime water operation was conducted. And of course there'll be other code words to put in there. You can't draw a big conclusion when you're just seeing a handful of code words, but they're there for that reason. The idea of cryptography, and you can use this with replacing letters with different letters or numbers or anything else. The idea of the cryptography, and if you look at the Ninjutsu Camp Handbook, I choose some very basic forms of cryptography, including the witch's alphabet, or the Fabian alphabet, which is a symbolic form of cryptography. What happens is the idea of cryptography isn't so much to keep the information hidden. What it does is it makes it harder for the person who steals the information to get the information in time for it to become any type of valuable asset. So if you have like military plans, or corporate plans, because corporate espionage is big nowadays, and you have them scrambled or worked out in some sort of cryptographic fashion, a person getting that encrypted information has to decrypt it. And when you're talking about, yes, there's computers out there and all these things which can decrypt that information, but there's also people out there who can encrypt the information using various word jumbles or letter jumbles or symbols, or a mix of all three. Even binary codes, almost referred to as checkerboard ciphers, where a different word every so many spaces in a sentence is what's put together to make the word, or the term used, to pass on the information. All this is used to hide the information from the people who don't